I am Elias. For years, I thought I had a marriage that was unshakable, one that could endure any tempest that came our way. Serena and I had shared more than a decade of our lives together. We crafted a life intertwined, filled with dreams, laughter, and what I believed to be an unshakable connection. That's why I was unprepared for the way everything would come crashing down in just one night. It was an enchanting evening filled with unspoken longings. It was one of those lavish gatherings, overflowing with champagne and superficial chatter, where couples glided across the dance floor, illuminated by the soft shimmer of chandeliers above. I never considered myself the life of the party, yet witnessing Serena's joy at these gatherings filled me with a warmth I couldn't ignore. She radiated an irresistible allure that night. Her emerald green dress sparkled beneath the warm glow of the golden lights, while her dark hair tumbled in soft waves over her shoulders, evoking a sense of longing and allure. She possessed an effortless allure that captivated everyone around her, igniting a spark of longing in the hearts of those who dared to glance her way. For so long, I held on to the illusion that she belonged to me, convinced that despite the attention from others, her heart would always find its way back to me. The moment I caught sight of her on the dance floor, that illusion crumbled, beginning softly, like a secret murmur in the depths of my thoughts. A man drew near, an unfamiliar figure, or so I believed in that fleeting moment. He stood tall, exuding a magnetic confidence, the sort of presence that demanded to be noticed, drawing all eyes toward him. I found myself at the bar, engaged in a conversation with a familiar face from the past, when suddenly, our gazes intertwined in a fleeting yet electric moment. A flicker ignited within me, a feeling I knew all too well yet chose to deny. A haunting melody filled the air, and in an instant, he grasped her hand, surrendering to the moment as she allowed him to lead her away. I longed for her to look my way, to recognize my existence, to provide even a quiet confirmation that this was merely a fleeting moment. Yet she chose not to. In that moment, she surrendered to him, flowing effortlessly in his embrace, leaving me feeling invisible. I lingered in the moment, anticipating her retreat. I lingered in the shadows, hoping she would awaken to the truth of my presence. Yet she never found the courage to embrace it. Text the way her smile danced in his direction, the way she welcomed his hand to linger on her waist. It was a dance meant for souls intertwined, a secret rhythm that only the brave dared to embrace. It was deeply personal, a connection that felt like coming home. My stomach churned with a profound realization that pierced through me. This was more than a mere stranger. She was all too familiar with him, and what troubled her most was the undeniable longing she felt. In that moment, the urge to unleash my feelings was overwhelming. I could have approached them, shattered the moment, and insisted on understanding the truth behind their connection. Yet, a part of me resisted that notion. A profound ache nestled within my heart, a haunting reminder that this turmoil had been simmering beneath the surface for far too long. This was not merely a fleeting act of treachery. It was the moment I laid my eyes upon it for the very first time. In that moment, I felt the weight of my decision as I turned my back and stepped away, leaving behind a world filled with unspoken longings. I left without a farewell. I withheld the pleasure of a confrontation from her. I have just walked away. And that was the moment she came face to face with her own heart's longing. The instant I slipped away from the ballroom, the silence of my departure echoed far more profoundly than my presence ever could, and she felt a deep ache of regret. The biting chill enveloped me as I crossed the threshold into the night. It was a night where the vast sky seemed to envelop me, sparkling with countless stars. Yet an overwhelming sense of confinement gripped my heart. The distant melody from the ballroom floated around me, yet I felt an overwhelming numbness that dulled my senses. My hands quivered as I undid my tie, the rhythm of my heartbeat echoing in my ears. I found myself lost in a maze of uncertainty. Deep within, I felt an undeniable urge to break free. My feet propelled me onward, distancing me from the warm radiance of the venue, from the haunting sight of Serena entwined with another man. A fragment of my soul lingered in anticipation, hoping she would come rushing after me, awakening to the weight of her actions, pursuing me with the fervor of a cinematic romance that could somehow erase the pain of it all. Yet, she chose not to. She lingered. The stillness between us, her decision to keep dancing rather than pursue me, pierced my heart more profoundly than any conflict ever could. It unveiled the truths I had been unwilling to acknowledge for what felt like an eternity. This was more than a mere instant in time. This was more than mere movement. This was a hidden fracture in the very core that had lingered beneath the surface, and I had been too blind to see it. As I reached my car, a wave of trembling coursed through my hands, betraying the tempest of emotions within me. A wave of longing washed over me, tightening my chest as the truth began to unfold. The intensity of her gaze, the way her body melted into his embrace. It felt like a deep, instinctive connection, as if we were meant to find each other again. Overwhelmingly instinctive. It felt as though their souls had intertwined in a past life, igniting a spark that was both thrilling and forbidden. It felt as though I was a stranger in the very union I once cherished. I clutched the steering wheel with such intensity that my knuckles blanched, a surge of conflicting emotions coursing through me. The haunting resonance of my father's voice lingered in my mind, a distant memory from the moment I first shared my intention to wed Serena. Love transcends mere passion, my dear. It's a profound realization that even in your absence, your wife stands as a guardian of your reputation. Yet, in that ballroom tonight, I felt as though my name had vanished into thin air. I felt like I was invisible. The heaviness enveloped me, constricting my breath and leaving me gasping for air. In that moment, I found myself lost in a whirlwind of feelings, unsure of the path ahead. Should I face her and reveal the truth that lingers in the shadows? Should I linger in the shadows, feigning ignorance of what I've uncovered, until she returns? Am I truly the naive fool she perceives me to be? Absolutely not. I can't bring myself to do that. Instead, I turned the key in the ignition, the engine awakening with a powerful growl, stirring something deep within me. Amidst the whirlwind of emotions, a singular truth emerged, piercing through the chaos. I felt an overwhelming urge to break free from the chains of this consuming feeling. I was desperate to uncover the reality that lay hidden beneath the surface. For if Serena had ventured beyond that boundary, if she had already distanced herself emotionally from our union, then I had to uncover the true extent of the treachery that lay beneath. And so, rather than returning home, I found myself driving into the night, not shying away from the challenge, but boldly seeking the truths that lie beneath. The passage of time blurred as I drove, lost in a whirlwind of thoughts and feelings. The city rushed by, its neon signs and streetlights flickering like quiet observers to the chaos within my mind. My thoughts were a tumultuous storm, where fury, bewilderment, treachery, and an overwhelming sorrow clashed for dominance. They appeared before me repeatedly, dancing beneath the shimmering glow, her smile blossoming in a way that felt like a secret, one that was never intended for my eyes. My hands clutched the steering wheel with a fierce intensity, the ache in my fingers a mere whisper against the storm of emotions swirling within me, but I was unbothered. I longed to escape that haunting vision, the stifling truth that my wife had made her choice, parading it before my eyes without a shred of shame. I sat in my car, heart racing, as I gazed at the bar before me. It wasn't a glamorous spot, nor a place for mingling or making an impression. Rather, it was a secluded nook in the city where solitary men lingered, lost in their reflections, seeking solace at the bottom of a glass, trying to escape the shadows that clung to them. I had never been one to indulge in drink, not once in my life. Yet, in that moment, I craved something, anything, to soothe the tumult within my mind. The bartender, a middle-aged man with weary eyes that seemed to hold secrets, offered me a subtle nod as I settled onto the stool. The night stretched on, heavy with unspoken words as he poured a whiskey, anticipation hanging in the air before I could utter a sound. I let out a breath, my head swirling with conflicting emotions. You can't possibly understand. He refrained from probing further, merely nudging the glass in my direction before returning to his task of cleaning. It was peculiar how those who barely knew you could often perceive the depths of your soul more keenly than those who were supposed to understand you best. I lingered in that moment, lost in the depths of the amber liquid swirling in my glass, my thoughts drifting like shadows, untouched by the passage of time. As I lingered in the stillness, the weight of the evening's truth enveloped me, stirring feelings I had long buried. This transcended the mere act of dancing. It was about the deeper meaning it held within. For a woman deeply devoted to her husband, sharing such an intimate dance with another man feels like a betrayal of her heart. A woman devoted to her vows would never gaze at another with the intensity that Serena had shown him. And a husband who truly mattered to his wife would never have been overlooked. I brushed my fingers across my face, my thoughts spiraling around a haunting question. Had this been unfolding for ages while I remained oblivious to its presence? I retrieved my phone, my gaze fixed on the glowing screen, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. No messages, no calls left unanswered, no desperate messages inquiring about my whereabouts. Everything feels so empty, and that's when the realization struck me with an overwhelming force. She felt no concern for my well-being. She lingered in silence, not reaching out to me, offering no apologies or explanations, because she was unbothered. Perhaps it had been ages since she truly felt it. The realization seared deeper than the whiskey I reluctantly allowed to touch my lips. I craved understanding, genuine connections. It's more than my own thoughts, more than the anguished echoes of that night swirling in my mind. I opened my messages and let my fingers glide over the screen, searching for a name that had long been buried in the depths of my past. A person who could hold the key to hidden truths. A person who could unveil the hidden truths I had yet to discover. Caleb, my dearest companion, the one who stood by my side on the day of my vows. The singular soul who had an uncanny ability to perceive the depths of others far beyond my own understanding. After a brief pause, I gathered my courage and finally sent the message. I have something on my mind that I must share with you, and I crave the truth, regardless of the pain it brings. I pressed the button, my heart racing with anticipation. And then I lingered in the silence of my longing. The air in the bar wrapped around me like a chilling embrace as I lingered in anticipation. The phone lingered on the counter, its screen dim, save for the haunting glow of the message I had just dispatched. Caleb was never one to let silence linger between them. If he noticed my message, he would surely respond. And if he chose not to, perhaps that would reveal deeper truths than anything spoken aloud. I savored another sip of the whiskey, my thoughts swirling in a tempest of longing and uncharted possibilities. Did I let my feelings get the best of me? Had I surrendered to the depths of my feelings? Perhaps it was merely a dance, yet it stirred something deep within, awakening feelings that were meant to remain hidden. Perhaps her actions were unintentional, yet they stirred something deep within. Perhaps I was the one amplifying it into something more profound than it truly was. But then I found myself lost in the depths of her gaze as it lingered on him. That was something profound. And the reality that she had yet to reach out to see how I was holding up. That was the last whisper of hope fading into silence. A sudden thrum against the wooden counter pulled me from my reverie. I snatched my phone, my heart racing as Caleb's name flashed on the screen. "Where have you gone? We must have a conversation." At this moment, his words flowed with an undeniable certainty, each one laced with an intensity that stirred something deep within. No small talk, no casual greetings, just a deep longing that lingers in the air. Only an overwhelming sense of longing. My gaze lingered on the screen, a moment stretching into eternity before I found the courage to respond. "At Milligan's, a place where the heart stirs and long-buried feelings awaken. Arrive by yourself." He remained silent, yet I felt the undeniable pull of his approach, a magnetic force drawing him closer. I finished my drink in one swift motion and signaled to the bartender, a rush of longing coursing through me. Another moment, his eyebrow arched in silent intrigue. "Challenging evening?" A hollow chuckle escaped my lips. Something akin to that. Little did I know, the night was unfolding in ways I could never have anticipated. All I felt was that Serena's actions had awakened a deep yearning within me, and I couldn't simply ignore it. 15 minutes later, Caleb stepped into the room, an unexpected presence that stirred something deep within. He appeared unchanged, with his broad shoulders and piercing gaze, the sort of man who seemed to notice everything around him. He noticed me right away as I moved through the room with intent, before settling into the chair opposite me. "Speak," I urged, diving directly into the heart of the matter. Caleb let out a breath, his fingers grazing thoughtfully over his jaw. "Your question caught me off guard, and I wish it hadn't come up." A thrilling shiver danced along my spine. What could that possibly signify? He lingered, caught in a whirlwind of thoughts, as if the weight of his unspoken feelings held him captive. And then, at last, our gazes intertwined. "I've been aware for some time now, yet finding the right words to share this with you has eluded me." The world outside slipped away. The delicate clinking of glasses, the soft murmur of whispered conversations, and the distant strains of music intertwined, fading into a haze of longing and unspoken truths. A wave of unexpected emotion crashed over me, leaving me breathless and disoriented. "What is it that, Caleb?" My voice held an unsettling serenity, yet my hands were tightly balled into fists beneath the table. He exhaled deeply, a weight lifting from his chest. It wasn't their first encounter on the dance floor, a place where unspoken feelings intertwined with every step they took together. The words fell heavily upon my heart, each one a weight I could scarcely bear. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my emotions surge within me. For what duration shall we linger in this longing? Caleb's expression grew heavy with unspoken longing. Endless moments, perhaps an eternity. My heart was heavy with unspoken doubts, lingering in the shadows of my mind. Yet this evening, that solidified all my feelings. I struggled to draw in each breath, fighting to maintain my composure. What is it about him that pulls at my heartstrings? Caleb paused once more, but this time, impatience surged within me, igniting a fire I couldn't ignore. "Caleb, please, I need you to understand how much this means to me." He let out a heavy breath, a mix of longing and regret swirling within him. "He goes by Julian." In the world of finance, a chance encounter with Serena unfolded amidst the backdrop of a charity organization she passionately supports. They drew near with an intensity that was almost palpable, overwhelmingly swift. I reclined in my chair, my gaze lost in the emptiness of the wall before me. Julian, a name that stirs something deep within, a whisper of longing that cannot be ignored. The name felt foreign, yet it held no significance in the moment. What truly resonated was his understanding of my wife, a depth I had never fully grasped. A whirlwind of emotions surged within me, each thought colliding with the next in a tumultuous dance of longing and regret. Did she truly yearn for him? Was she deceiving me all along? How many nights had she returned, pressed her lips to mine, and feigned normalcy while her thoughts wandered to him in the shadows of her heart? I tightened my jaw, a storm of feelings brewing within me. Is he aware of my existence? Caleb's gaze held a depth that revealed everything I needed to know, even before his words escaped his lips. "Oh, he understands." The heaviness of those words enveloped me, wrapping around my heart like a dense, oppressive mist. This was more than a clandestine encounter, veiled in the depths of secrecy. This felt like a deeper torment, something deeply felt. Julian was aware of my deepest secrets, and he was unbothered, nor did my wife. Caleb's voice pierced the haze of my tumultuous emotions. "What will you choose to embrace?" I still found myself searching for an answer, lost in the depths of my thoughts. Yet, there was a truth that resonated deep within me. I refused to remain passive while this unfolded before me. I sat there, my fingers clutching the edge of the table, as Caleb's words washed over me, stirring something deep within. Endless days, perhaps an eternity, while I thought I was waking up beside her, sharing meals and laughing at our inside jokes, believing we were still united. She had been immersed in a completely different world, one that I could only begin to fathom. A moment where I lingered in the shadows, overlooked and forgotten. One where another man had claimed a place that was meant to be mine. The thought ignited a tumultuous storm within me, a fierce, unsettling ache twisting in my core. As I gazed at Caleb, my closest companion, the one who had stood by my side since our college days, I couldn't help but notice the heaviness etched across his face. He had sensed it, or perhaps merely felt the weight of unspoken truths, yet he remained silent. I felt a deep sense of longing, but anger was absent from my heart. Not at this moment. I found myself swept away in a tempest of feelings, unable to unleash my anger on anyone but her. I slid my glass aside, a wave of revulsion washing over me at the idea of dulling my senses. I craved illumination, not confusion. Share with me every word I uttered, my tone calm yet filled with an undercurrent of longing. Caleb ran a hand through his hair, caught in a moment of longing and uncertainty. Honestly, I had my doubts initially, but then I began to perceive emotions stirring within me. Serena began to withdraw, claiming exhaustion as her excuse to stay in, yet I would catch glimpses of her vibrant laughter captured in photos with him at various gatherings. I was uncertain if you were aware of him, if perhaps it was all pure, yet it felt anything but pure. I tightened my jaw, a storm of feelings brewing within me. So, you kept this from me all along? He let out a deep, weighted breath. I feared the consequences of my feelings, uncertain if they would shatter the delicate balance of your life. I craved validation, yet it eluded me. I nodded slowly, yet the ache of betrayal lingered in my heart. Not solely hers, but his as well. I rose suddenly, my heart racing as I clutched my coat tightly. I must leave now. Caleb's fingers wrapped around my wrist, halting my retreat with an intensity that sent shivers down my spine. Hold on. Refrain from making a choice you'll regret. I pulled my arm away, fixing him with an intense gaze that spoke volumes. I've already made a foolish mistake, Caleb. For an eternity, it seems. And so I walked away. The journey back felt like a haze, each moment slipping away into a whirlwind of thoughts and feelings. My hands clutched the wheel with an intensity that mirrored the storm within me, knuckles pale and trembling. The city lights blurred into a vibrant haze, yet my mind was consumed by thoughts of her. Serena, giggling with a hint of longing, moving with passion, allowing another man to touch her in ways that awaken hidden feelings. For how long had she been navigating the shadows of her own existence? Why had I been so utterly oblivious? As I drove into our driveway, my heart pounded wildly, echoing like a tempest within me. The house lay shrouded in shadows, save for the soft glow of a solitary light in the living room, that signified her return to a place where longing intertwined with the heart's deepest yearnings. She came back from the gala, leaving me in silence, untouched by a single call or message from her. I inhaled deeply, striving to calm the tumult that raged within my soul. I wasn't about to burst in and unleash my emotions. No, such simplicity would not satisfy her yearning. If she had been deceiving me, if the truth had been hidden all along, then I craved to hear it spoken from her lips. As I turned the key and pushed the door open, a rush of anticipation enveloped me, drawing me into the depths of what lay beyond. Serena sat on the couch, wrapped in the allure of her emerald dress, cradling a glass of wine as she surrendered to the moment. Her gaze lifted at the sound of my presence, a fleeting spark of astonishment illuminating her features. Aldrich, a name that stirs something deep within, a whisper of longing that dances on the edge of the heart's hidden corners. Welcome back to the place where your heart truly belongs. That was the moment. No desperate inquiries about my absence. Free from remorse, unburdened by concern. Only those 3 hollow words. I closed the door gently, our gazes intertwining in a moment charged with unspoken longing. Yes, I replied, my tone steady. I have returned to a place that stirs something deep within me. She tilted her head, her gaze piercing through the layers of my soul. Are you feeling all right? Your departure was so abrupt. I released a soft chuckle, devoid of any real amusement. Out of nowhere, Serena, I turned away because you were lost in the rhythm with someone else, oblivious to my presence. A fleeting spark danced across her features. Shame? Frustration? It was difficult to discern. She placed her wine glass aside, her spine aligning with a newfound intensity. It was merely a dance, Aldrich. You're overreacting to something that seems trivial. In that moment, everything shifted. The rejection, the nonchalant dismissal of all that I had experienced, all that had stirred within me. I moved nearer, my gaze fixed on her with a mix of longing and trepidation. Who is this enigmatic figure? She hesitated, her heart racing with unspoken thoughts. What is this? The man who held you in that moment of rhythm and connection? Who is this enigmatic figure? Serena's uneasy movement spoke volumes, revealing the truth I had long sensed. If it truly meant nothing, she would have brushed it aside with a laugh. If it were truly innocent, she would have acted without a moment's pause. She grasped her wine glass once more, savoring the rich flavor as she took a deliberate sip before responding. Just a person I've crossed paths with on the charity board. Merely a fleeting presence. It seems I was merely a figure in her life, just her husband, nothing more. I nodded, allowing the silence to linger, heavy with unspoken feelings. Her unease was palpable, a delicate dance of anticipation as she shifted beneath the intensity of my stare. Wonderful. I refused to allow her to manipulate this situation into something that made me seem overly dramatic. I refused to allow her to paint me as the irrational one. Tonight, I finally spoke with Caleb. Serena's fingers curled around her glass, a silent battle waging within her as she fought to maintain a facade of calm. He whispered that this isn't the first time you've surrendered to his embrace. Her throat quivered with the weight of unspoken longing. I can't quite grasp what Caleb believes he understands, but absolutely not. I severed all ties with her. There are no justifications, no sweet little deceptions. Just reveal the truth to me, Serena. Is your heart drawn to him? Silence enveloped the space. She parted her lips, hesitation flickering in her eyes before she sealed them once more. That moment of hesitation pierced through me like a bullet, leaving a raw ache in my heart. That was my response. I exhaled softly, a quiet affirmation to my own heart. Very well. Her brows knitted together in a tumult of conflicting emotions. Understood. Is that truly all you wish to express? As our gazes locked, a wave of realization washed over me, revealing the depths of her true self that had long been hidden from view. She was no longer the woman I had once vowed to love. She was no longer the woman I had envisioned my future with. Only a shadow of familiarity in my sanctuary. No, I whispered, my heart racing with the weight of unspoken truths. There's so much more I want to express. And then, in silence, I turned and stepped away, leaving behind a world of unspoken longing. I wandered through the hallway, each step echoing strangely in the place that once felt so familiar, now tinged with an unsettling sense of longing. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with an unspoken tension, as if the very essence of this space was aware of the secrets unfolding within it, long before I could grasp their weight. My thoughts had quieted, transforming into a haunting stillness, a heaviness resting in my heart like an unyielding weight. Behind me, Serena remained still, a silent presence charged with unspoken longing. Her gaze lingered on me, heavy with anticipation, as if she willed me to turn, to confront the unspoken truths, to plead for her like a hopeless romantic unaware of the inevitable defeat that awaited. Yet, I remained steadfast, unwilling to look back. Because this transcended the struggle. This transcended mere assertions, devoid of shouts or pleas for apologies that would hold no significance. This was about embracing the truths I had overlooked for far too long. As I entered her bedroom, I chose to close the door gently. I held back, refraining from any outburst, unlike a heartbroken soul consumed by his fury. No, my anger was a quiet storm. In the stillness, a profound longing lingered in the air. Weighty, a profound rage that nestled within, an unyielding presence that lingered endlessly. I opened the closet, my heart racing as I pulled out a suitcase, each movement steeped in a mix of longing and trepidation. And that's when I felt it, the weight of her footsteps drawing near, tentative yet purposeful. She lingered in the doorway, her figure framed by the soft, muted light spilling from the hallway. "Aldrich, what are you up to?" Her voice now carried a weight of longing. It had shed its armor, revealing a vulnerability that pulsed with longing. It was tentative, filled with a sense of longing. I hesitated before responding. As I meticulously sorted through the clothes, folding each piece with care, a rush of longing surged within me, intertwining with the act of packing, igniting a spark of something deeper and unspoken. It was a fleeting moment, just enough to ignite a spark for a handful of nights, because I craved the freedom to explore my innermost feelings. I craved freedom. There was no way I could bring myself to share a bed with her after that moment of uncertainty, the weight of her hesitation hanging heavily in the air, a reminder of the unspoken desires that lingered between us. "Aldrich," she whispered once more, drawing nearer, her heart racing with unspoken longing. "Is it possible for us to have a conversation about this?" A soft chuckle escaped my lips, and I shook my head gently while securing the suitcase with a final zip. "So now you feel the urge to speak?" At last, I mustered the courage to confront her gaze. Where was that feeling when I stepped away from the gala? She recoiled, as though the haunting echo of that moment had finally reached her heart. Words eluded me in that moment. I gazed at her, lost in a moment of longing. The subtle movement of her feet, the delicate intertwining of her fingers before her, spoke volumes of unspoken longing. Regret lingered, yet it was not the kind that stirred my heart in the way I longed for. It was not sorrow for the pain inflicted upon me. It was a bittersweet ache, a longing for what could have been, overshadowed by the weight of exposure. "You still haven't responded to my inquiry," I murmured, my tone softening. "Is your heart drawn to him?" She swallowed hard, her eyes flickering downwards, as if the weight of unspoken longing pressed heavily upon her heart. "I'm uncertain." That was the moment. That was everything she needed to express. I exhaled deeply, my hand gliding over my face as if trying to erase the weight of unspoken yearnings. "You have no idea." I uttered the words once more, hoping that the repetition might somehow diminish the weight of their sorrowful truth. "How can you possibly be unaware, Serena?" Is a choice that pulls at the heart, a moment where hesitation dances with longing. She finally met my gaze, her eyes shimmering with an unspoken longing that stirred something deep within me. "I never expected any of this," she murmured, her voice trembling with a mix of longing and regret. "It simply happened." I laughed once more, yet this time there was no trace of bitterness in it. It felt like a void, a hollow space where something once thrived. Indeed, we share that sentiment. I clutched the handle of my suitcase, my heart racing as I brushed past her, the air thick with unspoken tension. Her touch lingered, a soft caress that ignited a spark within me. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling with longing. "Simply remain here. Let's uncover the depths of this together." I paused, if only for a fleeting moment, just enough time for her words to resonate deeply within me. And then I tilted my head ever so slightly. "I believe you have already taken that step." And with that, I stepped into the unknown. The night air enveloped me as I stepped outside, its crispness biting gently against my skin, awakening something deep within me. I lingered on the porch, allowing the heaviness of everything to envelop me. My car sat in the driveway, an unspoken promise lingering in the air. Yet for the first time in ages, I found myself lost, uncertain of the path that lay ahead. I could find myself in a hotel, perhaps. I could return to that dimly lit bar, cradling a glass of whiskey, allowing my thoughts to swirl and intertwine until dawn broke the night's embrace. Or perhaps I could take the wheel, just keep driving until the city lights vanished into the darkness, until I could escape the reality of my wife's confession about her feelings for another man. Yet, regardless of my journey, the reality remained unchanged. Serena had slipped away from my grasp long before now. I found myself lost in the moment, revisiting feelings that stirred deep within me. The sudden buzz of my phone in my pocket pulled me from my reverie, a stark reminder of the world outside my thoughts. I drew it from its hiding place, my gaze fixated on the glowing screen, a rush of feelings awakening within me. "Caleb." With a fluttering heart, I paused before responding. Is that so? His voice carried a soft intensity, resonating with unspoken longing. Where have you gone? I released a breath, heavy with unspoken longing. Departing. A moment of stillness. So, will you be joining me here? A shadow crossed my face. Where is this place that stirs my heart? Caleb let out a heavy breath, a mix of longing and regret swirling within him. I'm sitting in a diner, lost in thought. I thought you might crave something to nourish your soul, and a confidant to share my deepest thoughts with. I cast a lingering look at the house, where the soft glow poured from the windows, revealing the shadowy figure of Serena poised just within. In that fleeting moment, a part of me yearned for her to chase after me. If she had dashed out, taken my hand, pleaded with me not to leave. Yet, she chose not to. I glanced back at my car, a sense of longing stirring within me. Yeah, I whispered, my heart racing as I pulled open the door. Send me the location, please. And then I drove, feeling the weight of unspoken longings tugging at my heart. Not looking back, but toward whatever intoxicating mystery awaited. The city lights danced in a haze as I drove, my mind swirling with a tempest of thoughts that refused to quiet down. My fingers clutched the steering wheel with an intensity that mirrored the turmoil within me, the weight of unspoken feelings pressing down as I struggled to keep my gaze fixed ahead. Caleb's message had arrived, directing me to a forgotten diner on the town's edge, a place that lingered in the shadows, open through the night, where the coffee was potent enough to chase away lingering memories. It was something I longed for, because Serena's spirit was already entwined with my thoughts. It wasn't her essence that had faded. She was undeniably present, perhaps lingering in our home, gazing at the vacant threshold where I had once stepped away. No, it wasn't her physical presence that lingered in my mind like a haunting shadow. It was the echoes of our past, the moments we wove together, crafting a bond one believed could withstand anything. It was the painful awakening that everything, the laughter, the whispered conversations under the stars, the fleeting, tender gestures, had ultimately been devoid of significance. I found myself clinging to a dream she had long since let go of. That was the true act of treachery. It was more than the rhythm of the dance, more than the touch of the man who had crossed boundaries she thought were unbreakable. It was the way she let me go, without a word, that stirred something deep within me. The diner's neon sign pulsed with a life of its own as I drove into the lot, its vibrant light spilling over the worn pavement, creating a dance of shadows that whispered secrets of longing and unspoken desires. As I caught sight of Caleb through the window, my heart fluttered. He was nestled in a booth, a steaming cup of coffee waiting for him, and in that moment, everything felt charged with an unspoken tension. His gaze met mine as I entered, a subtle acknowledgement passing between us before he motioned for me to take the seat opposite him. I slipped into the booth, silence enveloping me like a shroud. The aroma of coffee and grease enveloped me, a comforting presence that stirred feelings I had long buried. The waitress, a woman in her 50s with weary eyes, materialized beside me, placing a menu on the table that I had no intention of glancing at. Coffee, I whispered, a hint of longing in my voice. Darkness. With a heavy heart, she turned and stepped into the shadows, leaving behind a lingering ache of unspoken longing. Caleb's gaze lingered on me, a charged silence enveloping us before he leaned in closer. Your appearance is quite disheveled. I released a hollow chuckle. Experience it deeply. He lingered in silence, never probing, never checking on my well-being. He was all too aware of the consequences. Instead, he savored his coffee, his gaze lingering on me from behind the rim of his cup, a silent tension hanging in the air. What comes next? My gaze lingered on the table, fingers gliding over the familiar yet elusive contours of its weathered surface. Ah, the question that lingers in the air, heavy with unspoken truths. Isn't it? Caleb let out a soft sigh, placing his cup down with a gentle clink, as if the sound echoed the weight of unspoken feelings. I find myself at a loss for words, my friend. You left, and yet she remained still, not chasing after you. That reveals all the secrets you seek to uncover. I nodded, fighting back the surge of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. Indeed it does. The silence lingered, thick and oppressive, wrapping around us like a shroud. The waitress brought my coffee, placing it silently before vanishing once more into the shadows. I cradled the cup in my hands, feeling the heat embrace me, stirring something deep within. "Do you believe she will reach out?" I inquired, my voice barely above a whisper. Caleb let out a heavy breath, his hand brushing over his face as if trying to erase the weight of his thoughts. "I find myself lost, Aldrich. But if she does, will you answer the call?" I hesitated before responding. I found myself hesitant, dreading the possibility of the justifications she might conjure. Did she feel a pang of remorse? Did she truly feel anything at all? Or was she grateful that I had taken the burden of choice from her shoulders? I savored the warmth of the coffee, my mind drifting through the chaotic remnants of my marriage. Perhaps the truth will reveal itself in time. And in that fleeting instant, uncertainty washed over me, leaving me questioning if I truly desired it at all. Time slipped away as I found myself lost in the depths of my coffee, the swirling liquid whispering secrets I yearned to uncover. The diner pulsed with hushed exchanges, the sporadic clink of plates shattering the stillness that enveloped Caleb and me. It was peculiar. Just hours earlier, my universe seemed to be crumbling. Yet now, in this serene and unassuming instant, I experienced a sensation that had long eluded me. Sweet release. For years, I clung desperately to a memory that had long since faded away, yearning for a connection that felt both thrilling and unattainable. I had persuaded myself that love was about perseverance, that marriage was about braving the tempests, regardless of their ferocity. But what I failed to see was that Serena had long since turned away from the tempest we once faced together. I had been battling my inner turmoil in solitude, and now I surrendered to the pull within me. The soft tremor of my phone against the table stirred something deep within me. In that fleeting moment, our eyes met the object of our unspoken longing, a spark igniting between us. The name that lit up the screen sent a shiver through my core. Serena, a name that stirs something deep within, a whisper of longing that cannot be ignored. Caleb let out a breath, heavy with unspoken longing. There it stands before me. I gazed at the phone, feeling its vibrations pulse against the table, stirring something deep within me. My fingers trembled with longing, yet I held back, resisting the pull of temptation. I was beyond the reach of her rehearsed justifications, immune to the feeble attempts at mending what was already broken. For the first time since everything began, I felt the weight of the truth enveloping me. Her call wasn't about mending what was broken. She reached out, her voice trembling, as the weight of her emotions threatened to overwhelm her. And I refused to grant her the pleasure of believing I was still lingering in the shadows for her. I muted the call, hastily tucking the phone away into my pocket. Caleb's brow arched in intrigue. "Are you really going to leave me hanging?" I turned away, overwhelmed by the weight of my thoughts. "Absolutely not. I can't bear to listen to it." A subtle smile danced at the edge of his lips, hinting at unspoken longings. Wonderful. For the first time that night, I exhaled, feeling a lightness that had long been absent from my soul. I lifted my coffee, letting the steam caress my face as I took a deliberate sip, relishing the comforting warmth that enveloped me. With each breath, a sense of freedom enveloped me, as if the burdens I carried were slowly dissipating, revealing a hidden lightness within. Serena had embraced her decision, and now I was embracing my own. I refused to allow this to shatter my spirit. I refused to allow her treachery to shape the path ahead of me. Tomorrow, I would begin to unravel the threads of my existence, contemplating the choices ahead, whether it meant seeking legal counsel, finding a new place to call home, or piecing together the fragments of my life anew. Yet this evening, tonight, I found myself in this diner, savoring my coffee, relishing the intoxicating thrill of my newfound freedom. In that moment, a wave of liberation washed over me, unlike anything I had experienced in years.